School boards across the country demand federal troops to protect them from terrorist parents who dare show up and protest the miseducation of their children. In the Democrats' fascist state, there will be no talking back to the Biden-Jugend, the new Hitler Youth of America. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and is this still America that we live in? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We are the only program with the garbanzo beans to keep you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms on college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. You know, you can save up to 66% at MyPillow.com when you simply use yours truly personalized authorization code. That is Dr. Duke, D-R-D-U-K-E, D-R-D-U-K-E. Support us by supporting MyPillow, great pillows that support you when you sleep. Okay, we start today with feckless school boards across the country as a national group is calling on the Biden administration to provide Homeland Security and FBI agents to protect school board members from being lectured by their parents. Where?
Wow. A little bit of tears, kind of, or something over there. So apparently, according to NPR, the group, the National School Boards Association, had claimed that school board meetings now require the presence of justice, education, and Homeland Security departments, as well as the FBI, because parents want their kids to be educated, and so that's why we have this. I know, you're sitting there scratching your head at home, being like, what are you talking about? But no. It's true. You're not, well, you are living in a nightmare, but you're awake during it. So they cited at least a number of incidents, including one in Loudoun County, Virginia. Because in Loudoun County, they are doing the worst job, I think, of any of the school districts across the entire nation. Now, that is debatable, but they're at least in the top 5. So they cited that as an example where school board meetings have devolved into arguments requiring law enforcement involvement. And if you paid attention to any of the shows we've been doing, especially about Loudoun County over the past months, especially this week, actually, when we talked about Matt Walsh and how you had to get basically, maybe not frisked, but it was like a TSA invasion where you had to show proof that you are a resident there. You had to go through the security line. You had to wait in line. No one else was allowed in. So I don't know where these arguments are coming from, because no one's allowed in except for when you can speak for your 1 minute. 60 seconds is all they give you.
So basically 1 minute of listening to the constituents who pay your bills. 1 minute for each mom who pays property taxes to talk to you. You don't have to respond. You don't have to look at the mom. You don't even have to listen to what she's saying. You could be on your phone. You could be playing tic-tac-toe or submarine with the guy sitting next to you. You don't have to do anything but listen sit there for a minute. And on the basis of parents getting angry, you've called in federal troops. We didn't call in federal troops to stop the burning down of targets and police stations. We did not send federal troops for any of those Black Lives Matter, Antifa riots, no. But because your mom, or maybe your kid's dad, is angry that their 8-year-old's being exposed to a discourse on anal intercourse, you're going to send the feds. Really?
Well, as they say, these are heinous actions that could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. But on the other side, it's mostly peaceful protests. So that's where we're at. So, of course, in response to this, we find out that, yes, indeed, the Office of the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, decided to write a little note, a memorandum, for the director of Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, the director of the Executive Office for U.S. Attorneys, Assistant Attorney General, the Criminal Division, United States Attorneys. And in said letter, Merrick writes that, in recent months, there's been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff who participate in the vital work of running our nation's public schools. While spirited debate about policy matters is protected under our Constitution, that protection does not extend to threats of violence or efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views. Okay.
Wait, so, right, shouldn't they send the federal government out to the school board members? To police them?
Yes.
Or these superintendents or these idiot teachers who are forcing kids to listen to this nonsense?
Now. The threats against public servants are not only illegal, they run counter to our nation's core values. I thought we didn't care about our nation's core values anymore. I thought everything about our system should be burned down, yes. Those who dedicate their time and energy to ensuring that our children receive a proper education in a safe environment deserve to be able to do their work without fear for their safety. You could apply this to pretty much anything. And we all know that the things he's mentioning are already illegal. So why are we putting this letter out now? Maybe it's to silence all those parents who maybe just wanted to speak out and protect their children to get to be a safe space.
Based on how the January 6th incident went with the feds getting involved, I suppose now a mom, for saying the wrong thing at a school board, could be sent to a prison and not given a lawyer for 6 months and not have any adjudication of the case for 8 months, roasting in prison like, has happened to so many of the insurrectors on January 6th. And do we remember, Katie? We remember when Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. Yeah. And remember, he was a compromise. This guy is not who Barack wanted. This guy was really a conservative. But we're going to offer him up as a way of getting somebody on the court that the Republicans will vote for. Now do you know why the Republicans voted down Merrick Garland? I hope you do, because he's a fascist. And can you imagine what kind of a fascist he would have been if he had a lifetime appointment in a stupid black robe?
Well, I am just shocked that included in this letter is something, in a way, complimentary of the police. So it says coordination and partnership with local law enforcement is critical to implementing these measures for the benefit of our nation's nearly 14,000 public school districts. But I thought we needed to get rid of all cops, all police, not only in the community, but especially in the schools, and replace them all with just people who were supposed to.
Now, when you're talking federal police, though,
maybe that.
These are the new brown shirts, right? This is the new Gestapo of America. It's those local police officers, the guy that lives next door to you and drives a truck and likes to go deer hunting, the cop around the block, right, who volunteers at the soup kitchen. Those are the bad guys. The ones who keep us all safe and sound, who work for the local community, where your tax dollars have a sense in paying their salaries, where they know you as friends and neighbors. Those are the cops who are white supremacists, right? But see, the federal Hitler-Jugend cops aren't.
So what this letter then says is that the FBI will work with each United States attorney to convene meetings with the federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial leaders in each federal judicial district within 1 month of the issuance of this memorandum. And the meetings will facilitate the discussion of strategies for addressing threats against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff, and will open dedicated lines of communication for threat reporting, assessment, and response. Mom and Dad, ignore whatever they're saying here. They're just trying to scare you. If you want to speak up against something your school board's doing, you want to speak up on behalf of your own children, do it. This is just a scare tactic to try to shut you down.
I dare them to start arresting soccer moms. I dare them. It would be the best publicity for the out-of-control nature of this wicked American government now. Do it. In fact, come to a town near us. We'll all get arrested doing it. But here's the thing, too. How soon before the federal government decides that challenging critical race theory is racism, and therefore you have to be arrested if you do it? I mean, if we don't push back against this, if we don't continue to go and make our voices heard, and to push back against this unlawful, unethical, immoral use of federal troops, thugs, advisors, clown show people to come and try to stop down local discourse at a school board, America's a lot far down the rabbit hole than you and I thought before, America.
Very quickly, before we move on, this is just a reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store, download, and then make sure you allow for notifications. Also, if you like listening to the audio podcast, we are available on Apple, Google, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. And since we're on the topic of, race and racism, theater students we know are about the drama, and they're also about racism. And they're refusing to go to class because of this racism. This is happening at the Coastal Carolina University theater students, where dozens of them, decided to protest against a professor who allegedly performed a racially insensitive act. Dressed in all black, students gathered in the courtyard of the Fine Arts Building instead of going to their class after they discovered the names of the non-white students were written on a board and were categorized by race without any explanation. No explanation, so clearly it's racism. So theater student Kellis Harriet said that the incident made her and some of her classmates feel isolated. She said, "We're telling ourselves that we have each other when they don't have us. Until we are met with the same respect that we give our professors, we do not owe them that." Other students then said that they don't feel safe on campus as a result of seeing some names. They don't know what's going on yet, but the names of the non-white students were on a blackboard.
So the same
can we say,
group-
is it a blackboard or a whiteboard?
Yeah, be careful. The same
something.
The same people who tell us that say her name are the same people who are saying don't write her name. Come on. And when you said that they're all dressed in black, no, that's not protest. They're theater major. They're the only clothes they have.
And scene.
And
so here's the explanation as to what happened. The CCU artist in residence, Dr. Susan Fink, shed light on her controversial action. Her controversial action was that she was having a conversation with two black students after class, and she was listening to their frustration and about isolation and all that. So she said one of her students started writing names on the board.
Why?
Whoops! So it was one of her students who wrote the names on the board.
One of the black students?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
So she stated that the only mistake she made, Fink did, was that she left, like she didn't erase the board afterward.
Wait, if a female black student writes a name and a white professor erases it, isn't that even worse than what happened first?
So apparently then, because of this list, again, that didn't have any explanation, just had their names on the board, this made all the students think that their peers were being singled out because of race, because that's where we go automatically. That's step one. And so Fink then apologized to her students. She said, "I actually should have guided those students toward reaching toward their peers." And a spokesperson for the university issued a statement saying that school administrators are aware of the complaints and are now working to resolve the issue. And more issues are arising because another professor then said it wasn't that big of a deal, another theater professor named Dr. Stephen Robert Ernest. And he said, "I'm just sad people get their feelings hurt so easily, and they're going into theater." And then students got really mad at what he said. And so the same Kellis Harriet decided to say, "We are calling for his suspension and a case to be brought against him for removal from this institution." And then it just keeps on going.
So in other words, he called you babies and you responded by becoming babies.
So then,
outstanding.
So then the response again from him is then apologizing, saying, "I just sent a letter of apology to the DEI committee.
Wow.
My comments were not directed at BIPOC students."
Wow.
Evidently, there was an issue of a list of students that was posted that caused some confusion. I then made an insensitive comment asking them to move on from it. I had no idea it would blow up like this.
So he cut off his own testicles and sent them to the BIPOC students as a punishment for his own true statement. It's exhausting.
It's so great that it's the theater department, because I expect this always and forever from the English department.
Oh, yeah.
And at this point, we're getting it from the math department a lot, because math is racist too. And pretty much all the other departments. But when the theater kids get involved, it's always a good time. It's very dramatic, actually. Now, here we go. We must move on to more racism. I mean, why would we talk about anything else?
What else is there?
It's just racism everywhere. And you know that Ole Mississippi, is racist. In the student newspaper, the Daily Mississippian, spell that one, Mississippi. The Daily Mississippian, Hal Fox, he is a sophomore, Chinese and international studies major, who wrote that the name Ole Miss, O-L-E, Miss, needs a little bit of work. According to Hal, the university's recent efforts to recognize its racist past and remove its symbols are commendable, but this work must be continued. There is so much work to be done, to the point where even the name Ole Miss has been highly discussed, as it is a term slaves would use for the wife of the plantation owner. Nevertheless, Ole Miss must sever its ties with the racist ideas and sentiments of the past and embrace the new ideals of diversity and equality. It must stop enshrining bigots and racists and instead shine light on its heroes, such as James Meredith and Don Cole. Thank you, Ole Miss. Thank you, Hal Fox.
Hal Fox is a Chinese and international studies major. Let me guess what your opinion about Chinese decadence is. Let's see what you have to say about Chinese history. How about that? Hey, Hal, what is it that makes me believe that you're going into this study as somebody who is going to completely ignore the social justice destruction of all sorts of people by the history of China? Somehow, I don't think you're going to be as bold when you visit China with your smattering of Mandarin to talk to them. Somehow I think your outrage is going to be left at the door when you leave a Western country. And that maybe ought to tell you something, Hal, that your entire progressive outlook is just a tired shtick. But at least you can do it here in America. You think you could get away with that kind of nonsensical critique of a university in Beijing? I would pay many yuan to see you try.
Well, Hal's just a sophomore, so we don't know what he has been indoctrinated with in his courses yet. But according to his writing, he says that the university should change the Trent Lott Leadership Institute to something else. He says if Ole Miss wants to continue to atone for its association with segregation politics and racism, it needs to sever its ties with Trent Lott as well. Trent Lott, as you may know or may not know, was a Republican senator from 1989 to 2007, and for about a hot second, he was the majority leader. Now, as Fox wrote, Trent Lott spent his college years at the University of Mississippi as a Sigma Nu, also serving as president of the university's Infraternity Council. When Sigma Nu chapters in the Northeast brought up the issue of desegregation in their national convention, Trent Lott staunchly supported prohibiting black students from joining. After the Southern chapters threatened a walkout, the rest of the Sigma Nus gave in. Trent Lott had gotten his way, and Sigma Nu chapters nationwide remained segregated.
If what you want is for the university to segregate itself completely from bigots and racists, don't you have to disavow the entire Democrat Party, of whom voted almost unanimously in the South, places like Mississippi, voted against civil rights, the same Democratic demography that was primarily making up the Ku Klux Klan? If you're going to go, it's interesting to me that you picked the one Republican who graduated from your school in the last 50 years. You have an entire Democrat infrastructure there in Mississippi. All these Democrat heroes on the left, all of whom, who are much more racist, much more obviously conflicted with regards to civil rights, with regards to the Ku Klux Klan than Trent Lott ever was. But you're not going to disavow from them, are you? We are back talking about Thomas Cole, an early 19th century American painter who painted 5 paintings on a similar theme, and he called it The Course of Empire. Yesterday, we saw The Course of Empire, his third painting, which was basically empire in all its glory, empire at the height of its power. The fourth painting in the Course of Empire series is called Destruction, when inevitably all human empires initially and eventually crumble. And there you see Thomas Cole on the left, and here's the picture. What we saw yesterday was a beautiful, very Roman-looking, prosperous city that was completely in control, where everybody was wealthy. Here you have the destruction of empire, where the empire is being overthrown by so-called barbarians as all of that way of life begins to crumble. It's really an interesting painting. Destruction it is called. In the foreground, a statue of some venerable hero posed like the Borghese gladiator statue stands headless kind of like our American statues today. Is this the stage of empire we're in, where all of our statues now are headless and there's rioting in the streets and burning things down? Well, in the foreground of this, you see that statue of a hero who has been beheaded by the mob, still striding forward into an uncertain future. In the waning light of late afternoon, the dead lie where they fall, in fountains and atop the monuments built to celebrate the affluence of the now fallen civilization. The scene is perhaps suggested by the Vandal sack of Rome in 455 AD. On the other hand, a detail in the lower right of the consummation of empire shows two children, maybe brothers, fighting, one clad in red and the other in green, the color banners of the two contending forces in destruction, which thus might depict a foreshadowed civil war. The contemplation of this heavy price paid dominates this. It's the rerum lacrimae speech from the Aeneid, where Aeneas, the great epic by Virgil, where Aeneas asks, is all of this glory worth all of the destruction that it brought about? In the painting, the red and green banners are seen on the different sides of the river, with the green banners mostly on the temple side and the red banners predominantly on the palace side, perhaps showing a still ongoing war between traditionalism and modernism.
Well, those are the stories that we have for you on this fine day. Now, if you have a question for us, please feel free to drop it into the mailbag by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org. And of course, if you enjoy our content, please consider supporting our show by joining the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation keeps us going, and we really do appreciate that. So simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And as a special thank you, we will ship you our brand new American Patriot tumbler that features the one, the only, the rather ripped looking George W.
And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, we need you, we want you, we gotta have you educated.